Hey, what's going on? All right, today we are we finished welding up the airbag supports on the rear subframe. Now I'm going to pull that thing completely apart, make sure I've got all the correct hardware for when I put it back together, do whatever sanding, weld cleanup I need to do, um, get it ready to paint, primer, paint, slap it in the car, and hopefully be done with it. Yeah, so let's get started.
Keras hidup yang menerjang tak pernah berubah. Jalan hidupku panas pelukan mentari tak menghentikan bulat tekadku terus lari tak pernah berhenti ancaman dari mereka. Tetap dan terus berdiri bersama kawan.
So now we are going to, I said maybe I wouldn't paint it, maybe I would paint it, the rear subframe, that is. I think what I'm going to do is try and find somebody to get it all sandblasted for a cheap price or fair price or whatever. Then I'll paint it. Because looking at it, like the amount of hours I would spend sanding it and trying to get it nice, I'll just go get it sandblasted and be done with it. But so here's the point we're at. Everything is all pulled apart. All the welding is done. I don't need to touch up any more welding. The only big question is, I know I cut off a brake tab somewhere around here. I'm pretty sure I did. So I need to figure that out, and if I need to weld another one on, get that done. But I can do that after I get it sandblasted. All right, we're back in the garage. We got the parts back from the sandblaster. Everything came out great. Let's take a look. So here we are. Nothing spectacular, but yeah, it's all ready to paint. So I'm gonna clean some stuff up, wipe it down, tape some stuff off, and then get ready to painting. I can't wait to have this all back together and back in the car so I could clean all of this up. But yeah, let's get started on it.
Tanpa hiraukan segala bentuk perbedaan. Lawan dan hajar di depan dia terus menghadap. Angkat gelas dan teriakan. Lantangkan suara hatimu untuk selamanya. Kita berdiri tegak. Lantangkan suara hatimu.
All right, looks like we got everything mostly ready to paint. So I'm gonna get some primer down. Let's take a look what we got going here. Those got messed up, so I'm gonna fix them up a little bit. Got the bearing seats all taped off, so I don't paint those. Everything else should be fine. Yeah, so I'm gonna get some primer down. Let's get to it.
Kita berdiri tegak, let's go. Forever.
right, paint is done. We can now move on to reassembly. So I'm going to get that tape pulled off, get all of my bolts in order, make sure all of my hardware is good to go, and then I'm going to get this thing reassembled. Let's get to it. All right, here I'm going to real quick go over what all I have done to these parts to get the airbags in here. So, first, trimming. Let's see. If I flip this over, you can see this was all cut down. All of this was trimmed down. I trimmed this whole lip edge off. Added this threaded section for a bump stop. Some of my paint's already messed up. And then you can see the airbag support there. Let's get it turned around. So on this side, you can see the supports I added for the lower airbag mount and the new lower shock mount. All right, that's all done. It's back in the car. That was an ordeal. That was a lot of work, but it's all done. Everything went in, it's there. We'll find out if it all works when I get around to being able to drive this car. So let's take a look at what it looks like under here. Yeah, so there it is. It's all back together. Everything's in place. Everything works correctly. Yeah, that was fun. Let's make sure it cycles. Not too shabby. And back up. All right, so that's it. We're all done. What I'm gonna do next, I'm not sure. I think I'm gonna get the whole brake system put in the car and finish up all of the airlines. That's the plan, but who knows? We'll see you next time. I'm on my flashlight. You're a strong flashlight, buddy.